How do we get ourselves in a position where we have two industrial walkouts by junior doctors? This has been badly handled from the outset, hasn't it?
Well, I think it has been very disappointingly handled by the BMA because we put this in our manifesto in the election last May, and then in June I said I wanted to talk about how we implement that manifesto commitment. And instead of coming and talking about it, the BMA actually refused to talk at all.
Well, the BMA
and they just balloted
they say that
industrial action.
The BMA,
I don't think that's the right way.
Refuse
if you're
that.
trying to do something that makes care better for patients.
The BMA would refuse that, and they've said that you're the ones who have failed to negotiate with them for terms that they don't believe is anything too out of the ordinary. They say they are completely stretched as it is at this moment in time. They are at breaking points, and with these new proposals, with this new contract, that's going to continue.
Well, I think they should look at the details. And just to correct something that Dr. Lonsdale said earlier in the programme that I just caught the end of, he says this is a big risk. The contract that we are putting in place now has the support of not just Sir David Dalton, one of the most respected chief executives in the NHS, but a total of 20 chief executives have said this is fair and reasonable. It has the support of NHS England, of the main NHS employer bodies as being fair and reasonable. And I think, the question is, what is the alternative? The BMA are clearly not going to agree to this, but we've had now 8 studies in the last 5 years that have said mortality rates are higher at weekends. Do we just say, well, we're going to forget about those vulnerable patients, we're not going to make the changes necessary to have a 7-day NHS, or do we say, actually, we want the NHS to offer the safest, highest quality care anywhere in the world, and we're going to take these difficult decisions, and that's what we've decided to do today.
But this contract hasn't got the support of everyone. I mean, even one of your own signatories, Andrew Foster, one of the members who attached his name to this letter calling of the recommendations for this new proposal, for this new contract, he tweeted a little bit earlier on saying that he felt uncomfortable with these changes. So not everybody is in favour of what you're saying.
Well, he was on the reference group that Sir David Dalton put together that went through these changes, and he did sign his name to a letter saying that he thought the changes were fair and reasonable. And I think the issue here is that there's not going to be a solution that pleases absolutely everyone. But the question is, do we take the steps necessary? And I think the other point to mention is that what really matters if we want to have a safe NHS is that we have doctors who are not overtired, and we're putting in place some really important safeguards. We are stopping hospitals, for example, asking doctors to work 2 weekends in a row, to work 5 nights in a row, to work 6 or more long days in a row. We're reducing the maximum hours they can ask doctors to work. That on top of a significant pay rise to make up for the reduction in weekend working rates. It's actually a very good package for doctors, and I think when they look at the small print of what we're proposing today with an open mind, they will see that this is a step forward.
But Health Secretary, the real concern now is that you've got the vast majority of junior doctors who have been out on the picket lines, who have been out demonstrating over the course of these 2 industrial action walkouts, who are saying that, look, we are prepared to leave our jobs, we're prepared to walk out on this profession that we feel passionately about, and even go overseas, even go to the Southern Hemisphere. I mean, looking into the future, that's not sustainable.
Well, I'm passionate too that we have the safest, highest quality care for patients in the NHS. And I would just say this on the issue of morale. Look at the places which have the highest morale in the NHS, or some of the highest morale, places like Northumbria, Salford Royal. These are trusts which actually have moved further towards 7-day working. And why is that? It's because when doctors are able to give the care to their patients that they want to, that they know their patients deserve, then it's a much more pleasant working environment. It's a much more rewarding job. Now, at the moment, we don't offer that to many junior doctors who go into an A&E department on a Sunday. They find there aren't as many consultants there. They can't get diagnostic tests back. It's actually, quite a tough experience, and we're trying to put that right. So I think this will be the right thing to do. Of course, it's not easy today, but in the end we have to make a decision as to whether we want the NHS to be there for patients.
Do you concede, Health Secretary, do you concede that now you've lost the confidence, you've lost the support from a vast majority of people who are supposed to be working for the NHS, are supposed to be working under you? So, I mean, do you feel your position is tenable? Can you continue doing your job?
Well, the job of the Health Secretary is to make sure that we give the safest possible care for patients. I think in the heat of an industrial relations dispute, feelings are going to run high on both sides. That's absolutely inevitable. But when the dust settles, what history will say in a few years' time when we have a 7-day NHS, is they'll say, well, this was a totally obvious thing to do. I mean, why did we ever not have proper care? Why did we ever have this disparity in mortality rates for people admitted at weekends?
What the BMA
and they will
saying...
say that it was obvious that the Health Secretary had to do that, the NHS had to do that, and I predict it will have widespread support amongst doctors as well as patients. That's not going to be the case today for obvious reasons, but I think when the dust settles, people will recognise that reality.
Well, what the BMA is saying and what the junior doctors are saying is that if this contract does come into play, then it is going to be the patients who are going to suffer, because these doctors, even though they may well have an increase in their pay, they're going to be overstretched, they're going to be tired, and it will be the patients that will suffer. And if doctors do go overseas, do travel to Australia or elsewhere in the Southern Hemisphere to work, that problem is just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Well, I think that rather sums up why the BMA have been so unconstructive. I mean, to say that a contract that reduces the maximum hours a doctor can work, that reduces the number of nights they can be asked to work in a row, that puts in much stronger safeguards in terms of making sure they work safe hours, to say that that's somehow less safe just flies in the face of the evidence. And you don't have to take my word for it. Look at what respected people inside the NHS, what Simon Stevens, the head of NHS England, what chief executives who run hospitals delivering some of the best care in the NHS, they say this is a fair and reasonable offer. And that's why you don't have to take my word for it. I think people should look at what the contract is actually saying, and hopefully we can resolve this and move forward for the NHS.
Health Secretary, this is a debate that will rumble on for some time. Many thanks for joining us this afternoon on Sky News.